Welcome to Scars to Stars, where conversations and personal stories let us know we are not alone. In this show, you will meet authors and speakers from our books and events as they share vulnerable personal stories to spread hope and inspire you through adversities in your own life. The world is a difficult place. You will find like-minded people here with kind hearts and supportive souls. I am your host, Dina Brown Mitchell. I am a suicide survivor and the founder of the Realize Foundation. I am so glad you are here. Let's dig into this meaningful conversation. Hi everyone, it's Dina at the Realize Foundation, and I have a special guest today named Diana, and she has a whole journey to talk to us about around cancer, and I'm excited to hear more of the journey because I only got a little bit so far, but she also just wrote a book, so we're gonna probably talk about that at some point too. So welcome, Diana. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and tell your story, and you take as long as you need.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Diana, we already mentioned, right? And I like to start with my unique look because if you are watching on video, you certainly see that I am missing an eye. And thus tying to the title of my book, Uniquely Imperfect, Uniquely Qualified. And that's been a journey to get to that point. When I was 2014, so I was getting ready to start my milestone year of 40 and reflecting on all those great things that I was going to work on that year. One of them including getting to work on a healthy home life for my two boys, and after having been recently divorced, had some goals as a business leader and executive that I wanted to strive for, some personal things in terms of just learning to pause and be still and reflect, and also some inspiring things like doing a missions trip or fun things with friends that I had never gotten to do. And 30 days into the year, I got a call to come into the doctor's office after a biopsy. And if you've ever received that call, you know that to come in is not good news. You know immediately that that is not a good news visit. And I walked in those doors on my own. As a single parent, I can do this on my own. And heard the tough news that, Diana, you have a rare form of cancer. There's less than 500 cases reported a year. It's not a well-studied cancer, and you need to go to one of two places to be helped, either University of Miami, Bascom Palmer, which is the #1 eye hospital in the world, or to Philadelphia, to the #2 hospital in the world. And important note for you is I was in Daytona Beach, Florida. So Miami was 4 hours away and Pennsylvania, 15, 16 hours away. So I began my journeys down to Bascom Palmer and the University of Miami Health System. And multiple surgeries were done that year in order to remove the cancer and to get clean margins. I spent about 4 months with my eye closed while it was recovering because the tumor was in my eyelid, along my nose, and along the eye muscles. So I still had an eye, but a lot of surgery was done around that eye to remove the cancer and to rebuild the area. And then I had about 5 years where we went cancer-free, which was great because my boys were also, growing in those years. When I was first diagnosed, my youngest was 2.5 and my oldest was 4. So they were young, watching their mom navigate through this journey. In 2019, the tumor came back again and we had another surgery as chemo and radiation weren't proven to fight this type of cancer. So operating was the path. In 2021, I was at, my routine doctor's appointment, and everything looks good from an eye perspective, but I could tell that my sinuses felt different on the left side than the right. And so I asked the question, and we ended up doing an MRI. And within minutes after the MRI was uploaded, my doctor was calling me to say, you know what, Diana, we need to operate quickly, and we need to bring another doctor into the mix because it's moved to your sinuses. And so then it became a two-person team to operate on me. And that surgery, I really didn't want to have happen because it knew it was going to be intense. We removed the nose bone and the orbit bone, and we're working to remove the tumor, but also build a barrier for the cancer to protect my eye. After that surgery, we continued to monitor a little more closely, and we could still see signs of the tumor on the MRI. And the tumor board, which at that time was a new concept to me, started to review my case and debate about what we did and what was the right way to treat and prevent what was happening in the tumor growth that they were seeing. And so we started intraarterial chemo, which was in a lab. It worked. It shrunk sebaceous carcinoma. But in me, it did not lead to any good activity in terms of shrinking the tumor, but it did lead to some tough tough stomach issues and side effects. And so I am somebody that journals a lot, and I kept writing in my journal going, okay, God, do you want my eye? Because I feel like I'm struggling with my stomach, and I'm deciding between destroying my digestive system or losing an eye. And those were some impactful journaling in that season for me. And then one day when I was at work, I was president of a company, and Dr. C, who was my longtime doctor at Bascom Palmer, called me and said, Diana, we've been fighting for your eye for 9 years. We have to shift to fight for your life. I was very thankful in that moment that my door was locked, so I didn't have anybody running in to talk to me about work. But there was a bit of emotion in that for both of us because we had formed a connection. And I looked at him, or didn't look at him. I just mentioned to him, I said, I can be thankful that I've had 2 eyes for 9 years, and that I'm going to live past 50 with one eye. And so that led to us preparing for that 12-hour surgery in April of 2023 with 4 different surgeons, one including a neurosurgeon to go in through my skull to remove the portion of the tumor lining around the dura of the brain, and then my eye and different areas around my sinuses, which then led to a radiation process and just a journey, right, of being away from my family, being with different, living in Miami for a season to go through radiation. And in that season, that led to me doing a lot of reflection around, I've always wanted to write a book. I've always thought about speaking and sharing my story and going, okay, here's my time, right? Here's my opportunity to impact others and help them to see that there's a way forward. Our adversities, our cancers don't have to define us. And I just remember those challenges from people, right? You're a cancer thriver, Diana. You're not a cancer survivor. You're a thriver. And you are going to be refined by it, but you're not going to be defined by it. And I have been so blessed by the many people that I've met on this journey and the many opportunities I have had to help help another patient that's going to go through a similar procedure. Not the same type of cancer. I haven't met anybody with the same type of cancer, but I've just been so thankful for those opportunities to help somebody else that's going to navigate through losing an eye, going through an intense surgery. And I can answer questions that nobody else can really answer. And that's been a sliver of a blessing on my journey.
Wow. Every part of that story is so intricate and like you've just been through a lot, like you said when we were talking earlier. And I think what the question that comes up for me is like when you were first finding out you had cancer and your boys were so little and you were divorced, so you don't have somebody there. Like, how are you addressing that with your kids?
Mhm. I I can remember being at that doctor's office, which that doctor is still a friend of mine. So I go to lunch every 3 months with that doctor that first diagnosed me with cancer. And I held it together in his office until him and his nurses got up and gave me a hug. And then the reality of it all kind of hit me, right? And I reached out to my dearest friend who couldn't be there with me that day. She was traveling, and she was a mess. And I was like, okay, we've got this, right? I went home and I lived in a condo building, and you can't get into my condo building easy because you had to go through gates and a guard and that type of thing. And I was sitting there in that kind of why me moment, right? Like, okay, God, I have different plans for this year, and I'm a single mom, and I have all these things. Like, this is why, like, why? And I heard a knock on the door, and in my head, I'm going, okay, who's here to see me? Nobody can just get in to see me. And it was my friend Christine's mom, and I opened the door, and she's like, Diana, I knew I needed to come see you. I've been in your shoes before, but I wasn't alone, and I knew you were alone today. So I came to pray with you and to tell you that we can do this, right? We can do this. And that like moment of her just stepping in to be there for me helped me to go, okay, I'm not alone, right? I have, you know, my faith is strong, my friends are strong. Yes, I don't have a spouse, but I have an army, right, that's here to support me and help me through that. And my family, my parents are in Pennsylvania, so they're 15, 16 hours away. And thankfully, they spent a lot of time in that year with my boys. So I went through a stretch of about 3 to 4 weeks where my boys went to live with them because I knew I was going to have surgery after surgery. And that was very hard as a mom, but I also knew it was the right thing to do because they did not. It would have been so hard for them to process in that season to see their mom like going multiple surgeries, eyes closed, bruised, that type of thing. So my parents and my siblings were really key in just helping to allow me to focus on getting well and healing, and also allow my boys to have somewhat of a normal time and engagement with them.
Yeah, that was a blessing. Yeah, it is funny sometimes how God works
Yeah.
and how things and people just show up when they need to.
There has been so many times on my journey that people have shown up for me, but also times where I've had the opportunity to show up for like a doctor that I know is going through something tough, right? Because doctors have their own stories, right? They're people too. And I've had so many just opportunities to show up for them. And I can remember going, okay, God, I wanted to do a missions trip, but I think my mission, right, is in the hospital walls where otherwise I wouldn't get into, right? I think that's where my mission is, not where I envisioned, but that's where you have me. I have a role in this too.
Yeah, that's true. Um, it's funny because there's someone who written in one of our books that was in the hospital, has been in and out of the hospital quite a bit. And he took one of our Scars to Stars books to the hospital with him,
Mm.
and he gave it to the lady that was cleaning his room. And the next time that he was in that hospital, somebody said to him, "You're the guy that brought that book that we've all been reading." And so it made me feel good that, people are reading it and hearing the messages, and hopefully it's helping them in some way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It reminds me in my time frame when I knew I was going to be 4 hours away from home for 7 weeks for radiation. I initially didn't want to do that, right? None of that sounded good to me. Miami is very different than Daytona Beach to live. I was going to be away from my boys and my husband for many of those weeks. And we sat and met with the doctors about it. And my husband looks at me and he's like, Diana, nobody's going to care for you like this team cares for you. You need to come here. I was like, okay, I know that, right? I knew that in my head. And as a part of preparing to be away, I had reached out to one of my doctors and I said, okay, I'm here. I'm going to have radiation in the morning and then I'm going to have my whole day. Like, how can I help you? Like, how can I help you, a patient? Like, what can I do? And he looked at me, he's like, Diana, you need to heal. But then a few weeks later, he called and it's like, but wait, you can help me. I have a patient that you could talk to, that you could help them to move forward and to inspire them, and you could connect to them. And I remember like every day I had this routine of I'd get up, have my quiet time, walk to radiation, finish radiation, go work out, and then go take a nap. But I saw the same people every day, whether it was the valet or the person in security, the nurses. And it hit me that, they were there to impact me, but I also had an opportunity to impact them. And like your book reference, I looked at my husband with like a week left in radiation and like, I want to buy gifts. I want to give something to these people that have been my friend away from home. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, he's like, that's fine. So I had a design that a friend helped me sketch that was around a starfish and some themes that I try to live by in terms of adding value to people and making a positive impact. And so I had a sticker, like a decal, a little note for them, and a cookie. And we walked to radiation that day, my last day, to ring the bell. I was more excited to hand out this little gift to whoever we saw, right? I think we had 60 of them. And they weren't expecting a gift. Nobody really gives them a gift on the last day of radiation. And I just, I love when I go back in the doors, because I go back frequently every 3 months. I go back for checkups, but I want to go see those people, right, that were added value to me. I want to go check in on them. And so I love it when I see the little decal is still at Roger's desk, right? Or when the nurse in radiation who, I haven't seen her for 2 years, I walk in, how's your son, Diana? I love that because that means that my journey wasn't just about me. It was about how I could help others on the journey, and which ties to the book, right? It's to help others.
Yeah. So my question is, what did you do before this? Like before your 40th birthday, when you had all these plans, what did you do before that?
Before that time frame, I was an executive. I was a part owner of an automotive marketing company, and my role on the executive team was more the operations, the administration side of the business, human resources, culture, and training. And so that was like my role and my focus. I still had that role as I was navigating through my cancer journey. What added to the role as I was navigating through my early on knowing what I was going to be going on, we were also working to sell the company. So the role became a little more complex as well as I'm navigating a single mom and cancer. But my boss at the time, and I mentioned him in my book. He was a friend, but also who I reported to, and he was very helpful in terms of making sure I set boundaries to take care of me during this time frame and take care of my kids. That piece of how he helped me and how he was a friend to me through that is beyond impactful in terms of me navigating through that season of life. I saw him a few weeks ago and he's like, I didn't do that much. I'm like, no, you did, trust me. I know you did, because I look at that season when I endured that. And then 2 years ago, when I had my eye removed, right, I did not have him as my boss, right? It was a very different experience. I said, so I know you did a lot for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good that's a good story for leaders and business owners to hear, because just because our employee is our employee at work doesn't mean that we can't be supportive outside of that. So
Yeah.
it's important, because sometimes those are the people we see more than our family.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So then tell me how I know you had the book idea, but how did you actually start, and how was it writing that?
Hi there, it's Dina. If you like our podcast and you're enjoying learning about other people's stories of overcoming adversity, please go over to therealizefoundation.org and support us by donating. We believe that conversations, community, and personal story can change lives and reduce suicide ideation. And we also have a way, if you have a business, you can support us without money out of your pocket. So go on over to realizefoundation.org and look at the donate page, and you can learn how to support us as a business, and also you can donate any amount. Thank you so much.
So my husband says, like, Diana, you have all these journals. What are you going to do with these? So I think that I had kind of, I had something to reference, but as I was doing radiation, I stepped away from work. So I had time to reflect and think about things that I had on my list that I had never done.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I was doing was working on my speaking and submitting speeches and getting critiqued. And then I also saw an ad on LinkedIn from a group related to the Maxwell organization doing an inaugural concept called Book in a Weekend. And I saw that on LinkedIn, and I was like, you know what? I'm applying for that. And I applied for it. And Tim reached out to me to talk to me, and he was like, Diana, are you sure? Tim Elmore, are you sure you're feeling up for this? Right? He's like, because if you're feeling up for it, your story, your pitch like matches what we're looking for. I'm like, no, I'm doing it. Right? I put it off for 9 years. I'm doing it. So I went to. We had a weekend in January of 24. Yeah, and there was a group of 25 of us that were in the first program, and we did not write the book in a weekend, but we did spend a whole weekend listening to different authors, getting tips on how to write a book, how to jot your notes down, different ideas for publishing. We heard from some authors that came to speak to us live. And then we pitched our presentation to what we called our book sharks. And one of us received like full publishing and everything paid for. The rest of the 24, we still had lots of value, right? We had monthly coaching calls to get our book done. Our challenge from Tim and Sangram, who ran that event, were we want 25 books in 2025. And I was committed. I was going to be one of those 25 books in 2025. So that started my journey of, okay, get out the journals, chunk out my plan of how I'm going to get through each section. And it took me about 9 months to get a draft together, and then about 3 to 4 months of all that editing and that feedback. And the book is, published. But I don't think, I know I talked with the Book in a Weekend leaders a few months ago. I'm like, I probably, without seeing that ad, I would have just kept putting it off. But that ad prompted me to go, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I'm incredibly thankful that I saw that ad.
Awesome. That's really awesome. Are you working on, I know you said you were speaking. Are you doing book signings, or what are you doing to promote the book? I know it's new, I think, right?
Yeah, it's newer, yes. I have done a variety of things and continue to do more things. I've local book events, launch parties, also working on additional items in coffee shops in kind of non-traditional settings, which is kind of fun, a little more personal. Gone to book clubs and Bible studies. and also have, spoken spoken quite a few times down at the University of Miami or Bascom Palmer. They'll ask for the patient story and to come and share my story. I love that because it's a way of me giving back to the people that have helped me. But it's also pretty impactful to walk into an operating room versus being on a stretcher, right? I look at it and go, wow, I've never had this view. So that's kind of neat to get to do that. But I continue to look for different opportunities with workshops or speaking opportunities. And I was talking with a lady this morning, and we were talking about, sharing my story in schools. And I have done that some as well, like in middle school classrooms or high school classrooms. And because that's particularly girls, the teen years are tough, and they'll look at me and say, do you get made fun of? Like, how do you handle that? And, that's a lens that, I can connect to them on a different level to talk through those things. Yeah,
I'm sure that is very valuable conversation for them. I wonder if, like, with your work at the hospital and continuing to work with them and speaking, is there some bigger goal that you have in the future that you're striving towards with all of that?
I would say I have all these ideas, right? But I do. I spent 2 days in the month of May down at the University of Miami, and we did a pilot program for a group of nurses incorporating, concepts of mental health and then the patient story. And when I weave in my patient story for them, it's to remind them of, why did I pick nursing in the first place? Like, what's my why? Because there's so many patients that aren't thankful. They're grumpy and, that type of thing. I can imagine it's so easy for them to lose heart and forget why they picked, right, to do what they're doing. And that's an area of passion of mine that I'd love to have more opportunities within those hospitals, not just the ones that operated on me, but I think that theme runs true in multiple people in healthcare. They picked to do what they're doing because they had this broader vision and passion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they lose it somewhat because it gets weary, right? And I love being able to help them to see that, what you do matters, right? And even if it mattered to one, right, it mattered, right? And that's, don't lose sight of the power of what you do and how you impact people.
That is true. I think we could apply that to any business or profession, that when we start out, we have excitement and, passion about what we think it's going to be. And then you get into the norm of day-to-day stuff, and then it wears off, and then you have things that you're fed up with. And that's kind of how my business book starts, is like, if you're fed up and overwhelmed, how do you recognize what it is and how to change it to get to that better place? And with your training background, it seems like you could really create something for them.
Yes, no, and that's where I'm massaging, right, all these different ideas and things. And I also have a concept I'm working on. The book is written kind of like kind of workshop-y, I guess I'll call it, where there's reflection and application questions at the end of each chapter, because my intent was to help people see their story in my story and to learn from it and have some application. And so I'm working on some concepts around a women's workshop, like a few hours on a Saturday, have breakfast together and do kind of navigate through this, because I don't, it's interesting. I've had some people but okay, I'm reading a book because I know you, right? But I don't have cancer. And I said, that's okay. My book applies to everybody, not just to people that have cancer, because we all have some type of a cancer, right? It may not be a medically diagnosed cancer, but it could be anger, it could be a grudge we can't let go, it could be a heart problem. We all have something, right? Some adversity that that's holding us back. And if we can move past it, it can uniquely qualify us to help somebody else that is struggling. And that's been a big portion of my inspiration, is to help somebody else. And that passion was well before I had cancer. There's multiple tough moments in life, and if I go, I think there's a great verse in Proverbs on this. He or she, right, who refreshes others will be refreshed, and that is something that has been so meaningful to me multiple times throughout my life, right? If I make it about somebody else, go help somebody else, right? I am indirectly going to help myself.
Yeah, it's true. I resonate with everything you're saying very much. I wonder what so how old are your boys now?
My oldest is 16.
Yes.
And my youngest will be 14 in July.
Awesome. And how are they doing with school and with everything?
They are doing well. My oldest has been got a chapter in the book, right, around his years when he was younger, when I was, going through all the surgeries and things like that. Those were tough years. That was a tough year for him and tough year for me as a parent. And learned a lot of powerful lessons. I'm actually using the office of a counselor that I had gone to see during that season, and he asked me I went to him thinking he's going to fix my son, and he looked at me and said, "What if the only person we have to fix is you?" And I was like, "Oh, that is not why I came here, but that's a great question." So I have some kind of references to that in the book, because that was a tough season for him. And I look back at the journey we've been through, and he is a great student. He's in Cambridge ACE program at his high school. So he's come a long way. And his younger brother was really little when I was first diagnosed, so he doesn't really remember that much. But Ben remembers walking in to see me from after my surgery in April, and he would have been in April 23, so he would have been 11 years old, I can add respect. And he walked into the hospital room and he went running out in tears because I looked really rough, and it was just a lot to process. But he came along with me during 1 week of radiation, and he got to go see the machine that they used, and he got to meet my doctors and see the research lab where they're researching a cure for my type of cancer. And so now if I ask him how he's doing, he will look at me and say, "Mom, I'm okay now. I know that those doctors and nurses, they like you and they care about you, and I'm good now." So that's my context, right? I've got two different ages, and that's where their hearts are right now. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited for people to hear this story and I know people are going to have value from different parts of it that they can relate to. And the strength that it takes for you to tell a story,
Yeah, it's I was meeting with for coffee with somebody this morning, and they're like, "Diana, like, there's a lot of people that would try to hide that and try to cover that up." And I was like, I have to admit that maybe I thought about it, and then I went, "You know what? There is nothing comfortable about that. Like, this is who I am. I do not wear makeup anymore. I don't like. I'm just simple, and this is just who I am." So
Yeah.
I'm gonna use the scar, right? It's a way to connect with people. And I get some crazy questions and some crazy conversations, but that's okay because I'm alive and I'm thankful to be here. And it's a unique way to connect with people.
Yeah. And I think people might think they'll remember you for your eye, but really your heart is what is so apparent to me.
It puts me at, a high bar because I've yet to meet somebody that looks like me. And it's so that means anytime I go to a restaurant or to a grocery store, wherever I go, right, they remember me.
Yeah.
So it's like a aha moment for me of no matter, I may get frustrated with my service level at a grocery store, but I still need to be kind, right? Because they're going to remember me. So what impact do I want to make? And it is a bar that I am very aware of that I need to stay true to.
That's awesome, though. I mean, to have that attitude is really remarkable. And we have a episode that was just a few weeks ago. I think it was this lady who has she lives with chronic pain, and it's in her head, and it just happened all of a sudden one day. And she wrote a book that's called "But You Look Just Fine." And so it's kind of the opposite. And I feel like my story is kind of like that too. Like, people look at me and I go, you look fine. And that's why I put a tattoo on my arm in 2020 that said, "Thankful for the scars," because nobody can see them, but they're there. And so it's kind of the other side of the coin, I guess.
Yeah.
And so people probably see my tattoo and they don't understand what it means, but it's there's a Christian song by a band called I Am They that's called Scars. And when I first realized that God wanted me to talk about my suicide attempts, I listened to that song thousands of times. And it was just, I don't know, it just gave me the courage to speak up, I guess.
Yeah.
So I decided I needed something to see every day when I look down to remind me of why I do what I do.
I love that. Well, and it sparks your conversation, right? About what's the tattoo, right? Why is that on your arm? I can remember getting ready for my surgery in April of 23, and it was Easter weekend. And I looked at my husband and I was like, so I got married in the middle of this process, so I didn't explain that well, but I was divorced when I was first had cancer, and then I had a friend that just started to show up and be a friend to me and help my boys and just help me navigate different things, who then ended up, we got married into my cancer journey. So I forgot to bridge that gap, but and now I forget like what I was going to tell you. Oh dear, I'm so sorry.
We were talking about the tattoo.
The tattoo, and I'm still gonna lose it, dear, oh dear.
That's okay. Just about the scars that we have, and some people's are visible and some people's aren't, and that is why kindness matters so much, because even though whether you can tell that somebody has something going on or you can't, you still don't really understand what they're dealing with. And being kind is the best way we can handle that.
Yeah. Okay, now I remember. Thank you for sharing that. See, my surgery was scheduled for Easter weekend, and I had never not been with my boys for Easter. And so I was ready to resist and go, no. And he's, but Diana, that's when they can do it, right? Like, that's when you need to do it. And he's like, you have 4 surgeons operating on you. Like, you've got to go when they're available.
Mhm.
And there's a song by Cain, the Christian group Cain, called The Commission, and it talks about like Jesus preparing for Easter, right? Preparing to die.
Yeah.
And, you know, what he's asked us to do in terms of the Great Commission, and goodbye is not the end. And I kept hearing that song and I went, okay, if he could go and do what he did on Easter, I can certainly show up and miss an Easter.
Mhm.
Because, and so it was just a very humbling reminder to me that, no, did I want to do it that weekend? I didn't, but look what he did for me, like that weekend, right? I can do that.
That's beautiful. Well, this has been awesome. I can't wait for people to hear it. And I'm wondering if you have any last remarks you want to make.
I thank you for this time. It was very moving. I think both of us have moments of emotion in our voice. So, and I would just say in closing that to never forget, right, that you're not alone on the journeys that you're going through, and there's always hope, and there's always somebody there, even if it's the 2 of us, right, to help pull you forward and encourage you, because we're all going to hit moments where we're stuck, and we're not alone.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm so happy you joined us for this conversation. My wish is that you found comfort and hope in your own unique situation. If you resonated with our message, please head over to therealizefoundation.org, where you can apply to write your own story in one of our books. You can also download our 60 Ideas for Self-Care on the resources page. I can't wait to hear from you. Until next time, you are not alone, you are worthy, and you are enough.